So we are examining the life of Jesus because there are all kinds of stories being told in our society, in our country, in our world. And we believe that what our world is in desperate need of is healing stories, life-giving stories. And the story of Jesus is the life-giving story. It is the healing story. And we want to be more formed by this healing story of love. So we've been looking at his early ministry, and now today we're looking at some of the first public acts of ministry he did. But before we get deeper into this, I want to go ahead and offer a trigger warning statement, kind of like a parental warning label on CDs. Back when I was a kid, now CDs are total relics. But we're going to be talking about some serious stuff. I'm going to be mentioning some heavy topics. And as much as I'd love as a communicator to have this aha moment where you put things together, oh, that's what Pastor's saying about demons. More important than this aha moment, I want to offer up the opportunity. If talking and mentioning assault, and homophobia or transphobia, if talking about violence is going to be a trigger for you, any kind of aha moment isn't worth it for me. Feel free, feel safe at any moment to get up and walk around. Because I, as a pastor, as a preacher, don't ever want to trigger anything that you can't handle in the moment. And if you need to talk about these sort of things ever, I am available as a pastor, but I'm also available to help you find even deeper resources to deal with trauma. So trigger warnings. Are we clear? I have no idea how to transition from this, so I'm going to pray. So let's pray. Dear God, we again thank you for this beautiful day. We thank you for all of our LGBTQ brothers and sisters and siblings. Thank you for the way in which you just expand the family. Thank you for helping us love more. Help us always affirm love and fidelity. Thank you for the fact that this day we get to dig deeper into your word. And thank you that we get to have a potluck after, and we get to talk about where we're going and where we've been. It's so beautiful and so amazing. And Lord, I ask the meditation of my heart and the words of my lips, I pray that they're meaningful, and they offer grace and peace to my brothers and sisters and siblings. In your precious name I pray. Amen. Amen. So, Thomas Jefferson, which is the name you all thought I was going to say right after. I've been thinking about Thomas Jefferson because Thomas Jefferson did something really weird and funny and amazing. He was a fan of the Jesus, but not so much a fan of stories about Jesus. And so he famously or notoriously stayed up late evenings and took the Bible, more specifically he took the Gospels, and he cut out any passage in the Gospel that mentioned Jesus doing something basically other than saying stuff. Like if there were any miracle, any what we might call, or people might call supernatural, any healings, any exorcisms, cut out. No. It was called the Jeffersonian Bible, the Jefferson Bible, and it was just a collection of sayings. Now, the problem with it is Jesus had a lot of great sayings, but the problem is no one has ever been saved by sayings. No one has ever been saved by a collection of sayings. If they were, Hallmark would be kicking the churches in the butt. Yeah, Hallmark doesn't offer salvation. And it's not that sayings can't be nice, and it's not that we can't have a life's motto or a statement that really helps us in our change, in our growth, in our expansion and transformation. But sayings have never transformed the heart. I love sayings. I love quotes. Every single night when I go, before I go to bed, I get my yogi tea, and in my yogi tea bag, there's a little saying attached to the tea bag. It is always amazing, or most of the time it is, and it warms my heart. It's just never saved me. Sayings don't save. And the other problem with it is, if we want to take the story of Jesus seriously, and if we want to be transformed by the story and life of Jesus, then we have to take the things that the story of Jesus takes seriously. And they evidently take seriously exorcisms. You can't cut out exorcisms from the story of Jesus and be transformed by the story of Jesus. So there's a couple questions that emerge. How might we take these stories of exorcism seriously? Why does Jesus perform them? Why does Jesus take exorcisms seriously? And then naturally, of course, we have the question, do we all need to go around carrying a copy of The Exorcist so that we can know what to do in case we ever meet a girl whose head can twist around? Or not, whatever. I should have known that was a bad setup. I should have done better at setting that one up. How might we take exorcisms seriously? Why does Jesus perform them? Why does Jesus take them seriously? Well, to understand exorcisms and why Jesus takes them seriously, and to understand what Jesus was doing, we of course need to back up and get a little bit of some background. We need a little bit of context. And hopefully at some point you'll expect, I'm sure Pastor Ryan's going to talk about context today. Anytime you run across a passage, my hope is you begin to read it like, hey, what was the context of that? What was the historical background there? So what is the historical context of Jesus and demons? What was going on? Well, in the Galilee, the people that Jesus was preaching and ministering to, they were experiencing all kinds of economic, psychological, personal, emotional, spiritual hardships. They were experiencing oppression. They were groups of people that had been originally part of the 12 tribes of Israel. The people in Galilee were mostly from 10 of the 12 tribes of Israel who had mostly been completely wiped out. And by the time that the Roman Empire, after the Persian Empire, after the Babylonian Empire, after the Assyrian Empire, after the Greek Empire, after all of these empires had oppressed them, Rome came in and oppressed them, and Rome set up an economic situation that was completely devastating. If you were a Galilean fisherman, you would go out fishing at night, and you had to pay 90% of what you could make from your catch in taxes. There was something called triple taxation. You were taxed by the local religious leaders at the temple. You had to give a specific high offering to the temple. And then the local Roman rulers in Galilee, Herod of Antipas, Herod the Great's son, you had to give him a tax because he needed to keep building extravagant buildings. Actually, he built entire cities with this money. And then you had the local tax collectors who collected taxes on behalf of the Roman Empire. And you would be taxed up to 90% of everything you could make as a fisherman. And the same is true for farm workers. And in fact, in Galilee, many farm workers who had had land in their family passed from generation to generation to generation because of this triple taxation, they became so in debt to the amount of taxes they owed, they eventually had to sell their land to tax collectors in debt as a part of their tax payment. And they then had to work their farmland that was no longer their farmland because they were so deeply indebted. This is perhaps why Jesus talks about debt so often. Triple taxation, 90%. Economic oppression. And if you ever thought and you ever had the brilliant idea of like, well, this is stupid, I don't want to pay 90%, some of us are going to revolt. The Roman Empire had an amazing ability to deal with any kind of revolt. They would send in a legion or a couple legions of troops. And a legion was a Roman imperial military unit for 1,000 troops. Galilean towns were no more than 300 to 800 people, and Rome would send in 1,000 or 2,000 Roman soldiers. 50 years before Jesus was born, in a town called Magdala, where Mary of Magdala came from, Magdala decided we're tired of paying 90% of our taxes. They revolted. Rome sent in a legion of troops and nearly devastated the city, killing almost every single person, assaulting women and children. Right around the time that Jesus was born, another Galilean town had sort of forgotten the lessons of the Galilean region. And Sepphoris decided, we should revolt. And Rome sent 2 legions of Roman soldiers and devastated the city, wiping it out completely. And Herod of Antipas actually then rebuilt it as this glorious, magnificent Greco-Roman city. Almost all the men in Sepphoris were killed. Almost all of the women and children would have been assaulted on several different levels. Are we understanding how brutal this oppression was? It's really interesting to note that one of the words most commonly used to describe demonic possession in the New Testament, one of the ways in which the demons named themselves, they called themselves Legion. The Bible was making it very, very clear. Oppression, Roman imperial oppression, economic, psychological, emotional, spiritual oppression is demonic. So perhaps we could make these observations about demons. That demons are the result of psychological, spiritual, emotional, social, physical, and personal forces. Demons are the forces, mindsets, stories, powers, and principalities that fuel disconnection, that fuel degradation of humanity, that fuel disempowerment and destruction. Every time in the Bible, every time in the New Testament, every time in the Gospels, there's a story of someone who is possessed. They are disconnected from everyone else. They're disconnected from their family, from their community, and from their home. Demonic possession has become a thing in our lexicon, has become an idea that individuals do something evil, and therefore they are possessed. But according to the Bible, it is social forces, social evils, social systems that oppress and possess people. The human body can only take so much oppression before it's possessed. And anthropologists and historians have noted that when there are economic and social situations like in Galilee, the literature about demonic possessions increase. Demons aren't simply personal choices that you or I or anyone has made to suddenly become possessed by some evil thing. Possessions are systemic and social caused. Which all begs the question, what possesses the United States? What forces possesses the United States? I would say racism. I would say that guy is possessed. I'd say in Charlottesville, when people were marching with tiki torches and proclaiming white supremacy and hatred of God's beautiful creation, I'd say that is demonic. I'd say that's demonic. That's oppression. Racism in the U.S. is a problem. We are possessed by it. There are over 917 hate groups. Heidi Breich of the Southern Poverty Law Center says that in all the years of tracking, we've never seen this many hate groups as there are today. We've never seen their ideas penetrating the mainstream the way that they are now. I would say that most Americans don't realize how many hate groups there are. Racism is a demon that possesses us in the U.S. And I would add, there's another demon. I'd say that homophobia and transphobia is a demon that possesses and is destroying too many lives today. Homophobia, transphobia is a demon. 72 countries in our world still make it illegal to be homosexual. 8 countries in our world, you can be put to death for being homosexual or for being trans. There's only 22 countries in our world where same-sex marriage is legal. There are at least 30 murders every single year in our country because someone was transgendered. And LGBTQ youth are 5 times as likely to attempt suicide than the general population. This is demonic. Homophobia and transphobia is demonic. I would say that there's another one. I'd say that sexism is something that's possessing our country. Women in our country only earn 83 cents to every dollar that men make. 1 in 6 women are victims of sexual assault. By the way, men, it's a problem too for men because 1 in 33 men are victims of sexual assault. 80,000 inmates in prison every year are assaulted. 60,000 children every year. 322,000 people in the general population are assaulted every year. 19,000 people in the military are sexually assaulted every single year. Sexism and sexual violence is possessing us. Which leads us to another thing. I think violence is a demon that's possessing us. There are 11 school shootings in the year 2018. There have been 11 school shootings in the year 2018. There were over 300 mass shootings last year. In addition to the assaults mentioned, there are more than 455,000 people killed, victims of gun crimes every year in our country. We're possessed by violence. And we're possessed by greed. The share of incomes for those in the bottom half of the U.S. population stagnated and declined during the years 1980 to 2014, from 20% in 1980 to 12% by 2014. By contrast, the top 1% share of income grew from 12% in 1980 to 20% in 2014. The top 1% now makes on average 81 times more than the bottom 50%. The bottom 50% of our country now lives in poverty. And the average household that's carrying credit card debt has a balance of $15,654. And the average household debt in America in general is over $150,000. Because we have to keep up with the Joneses. Greed is a demon that's possessing our country. What do we do about it? Well, what did Jesus do about it? The first thing that Jesus did, Jesus named it. When Jesus met someone who was possessed, when Jesus met a group of people who were possessed, Jesus named the demon, named the possession, named the ghost and the gremlin. It is only when you and I, and only when we as a country try to not name demons, try to not name the things that haunt us, that's when we're all the more haunted. When we name it, racism is a demon. Homophobia is a demon. When we name these things, they no longer have the power over us that they previously did. When we name them, they no longer can simply lurk without anyone wanting to admit that we're possessed. When you name the ghost in the closet, it can't name and own you anymore. This was profoundly made present to me one afternoon on a Southwest airline. I'm now about to share with you the story of the time in which I was asked to perform an exorcism on a Southwest airline. Oh, okay. Here's the story. So glad to share this. I was tired. I was working as a pastor. I've been trying to plant a church for about 2 years. I was really, really tired. We needed a vacation desperately. So we went off to Walt Disney World. Because we were so tired, and we were flying with Southwest, we didn't check in early enough. You know, like you check in 24 hours and then you get like an A group. We didn't check in early enough. We were in the C group. So we had no choice of where we were going to sit. And we'd flown from LA to Denver, and we were boarding the Denver flight, and I was like, I just want to read my Kindle, I just want to listen to music, I don't want to talk to anybody. So I got out my Kindle, I got out my headphones, but before I could put my headphones in, the people sitting next to me, well, one was a really pissed off teenage daughter of about 13 years old with giant headphones on her ears, completely turned away, and then there was a nervous looking mom. It was the only seat available, so I had to sit right there. And I was like, it's okay, I don't have to deal with it, I'm just gonna like be in my own lane, stay in my own lane. And as I was sitting down, as I was pulling out my headphones, the mother next to me said, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, who are you?" And I was like, okay, I'll just tell her who I am and it'll be okay. Pleasantries, the plane hasn't taken off, it's still okay. Brief introductions, and then she asked me the most dreaded question of my entire life. She asked me, "What do you do?" And in my head, I still hear the audible voices in my head saying, "Do not say pastor, do not say pastor, do not say pastor." And yet out of my lips, you know where this is going, out of my lips came, "I'm a pastor." Why did I say that? I should have said I'm a writer. I should have said anything. I'm a teacher, not pastor. Because here's the thing. When I say this to people in public, I generally get one or two responses. I either get the, "Oh." We were at Melissa's high school 10-year reunion. I had her cocktail in my hand and my cocktail in my hand. And somebody with a beer, a light beer, found out I was a pastor, and they did this thing. So I hate telling people when I just need to be quiet and alone. I hate telling people that, because they either do that or they word vomit their entire life story to me. And I'm like, I just want to read it on my Kindle. She didn't recoil, she word vomited. And 30 minutes into the flight, somewhere just beyond Denver, she drops the bombshell, "My house is haunted by ghosts. Do you think you could perform an exorcism on my house right now?" I was like, well, I went to seminary, but I didn't really train to do that. At least that's what I thought. Not really that kind of pastor, priest. Can I pray for you? That's what I could offer. So we prayed, and I prayed that whatever was haunting her would leave her. She would no longer be haunted by whatever was haunting her. And then the next hour, I found out she's having all kinds of problems. They just moved into this house. She just moved in with a new husband. She is having all kinds of problems with her teenage daughter who is suddenly interested in boys. Because when she was 13 years old, she had been sexually assaulted. And she was taking and passing on all the stuff that she was holding on to. Her past. And she was placing it on her daughter, and it was causing a rift. And then we spent the next 3 hours just naming that and talking about it with both pissed off teenage daughter and struggling mom. And by the time that we landed in Orlando and they were walking off the plane, they walked off lighter. They walked holding hands. And it took me months to realize what had happened. And finally one night when I was thinking about passages like this, I was like, oh, we performed an exorcism several miles high in the sky in a Southwest Airlines. We performed an exorcism. Because like Jesus, we named it. She was haunted by her past, and she was passing on those demons on to her child, and it was causing more problems. And we named it. When you have something in your past that you regret, when there's something haunting our country, when we name it, struggling with this, I don't know how to get through this, I don't know what to do, this thing is overwhelming. When we name it, it no longer names and owns and controls us. We rob it of its ability to do that. So Jesus names it. And then Jesus silences the demon. One of the worst things that we can do in our own personal lives and as a society is allow demons to talk. Racist people are always welcome in our church. Homophobic people are welcome here. Racist thoughts, homophobic thoughts are not welcome here. In classrooms, in our families, in our communities, all are welcome. But you can't say hateful things. You may have a past, you may have regrets, and you may have them bugging the Jesus out of you in your brain. But you tell them to stop. You don't let them talk. Jesus, in Mark chapter 1, it says, but Jesus rebuked the demons, saying, be silent and come out. And he would not permit the demons to speak because they knew him. We don't let intolerant voices have a voice. People with intolerant thoughts, welcomed and loved. Their thoughts are not welcomed and loved. And then Jesus takes the demonic possessed person and brings them back into the family, into the community, into the church, into the tribe. Jesus reaffirms the dignity of that person. You are a beloved child of God. You belong. And brings that person into family, into community. Jesus reaffirms and reintegrates. Jesus creates what we might call the queer family. A family of all different types of people, integrated, welcomed, loved, whole, and diverse, all at the same time, in unity and complexity at the same time. This heals. This exorcises demons. And the last thing I want to say about what Jesus does is Jesus speaks with a sense of authority. Jesus gives authority. Rabbis and healers in the time of Jesus would always say, as Moses taught, as the prophets say. Healers in the time of Jesus would, in the name of so-and-so, I cast out, I heal. The people in today's scriptures are like, who is this Jesus guy that doesn't rely on someone else's authority? Jesus trusts Jesus' own divine inner authority. Jesus trusts, I have the ability to speak and teach and heal. And then Jesus tells his disciples, and Jesus is telling every single one of us, you have an inner divine authority. Our world is clearly possessed by all kinds of terrible demons. And when I was reading those statistics, I could feel in this room this energy completely sucked out. I was like, oh my God, that's a lot of demons. But Jesus trusts and gives every single one of us, gives you, and you, and you have the authority to cast out demons. You have the authority to take on our world, to turn it right side up. You have the inner divine authority to perform exorcisms. And our world needs this church. And our world needs you to start performing exorcisms. Even if you're on a Southwest airline flying from Denver to Orlando. You're empowered. Feel empowered. Be empowered. And may you exorcise all kinds of demons. Amen.